Welcome in, Shield Brothers and Shield Maidens, to Shield's Rest. I'm True, and today I'm joined by Frey as we get into our class build series here in Daggerheart, but this time we're optimizing the Sorcerer, so let's get into it. Alright, so for the Sorcerer's Hope feature, we have Volatile Magic, where you get to spend 3 Hope to essentially re-roll all your damage dice for a magic damage attack, okay? It has to be magic damage that you re-roll this for, okay? We also have Arcane Sense, which allows you to sense other magical people and or objects, which is kind of nice as long as they're within close range. And on top of that, we get Minor Illusion, which does work for anybody up to close range or further. Anything within that, they're going to immediately see this thing and they're going to know that this is an illusion. So, and then the one that we really care about here is Channel Raw Power. This is where a lot of that extra damage is going to come from, which is going to be rather nice, or our ability to also gain hope. So it's super helpful for that, and all you have to do is just put a card into your vault and that's it. Now, when you do put your card into the vault, that doesn't mean you get to pull, free something up from the vault into your hand. You're just going down from 5 cards to 4 cards. You will still have to pay some form of that recall cost to bring that extra card in if you want to. So that's the only difference on that one, but otherwise, not a bad overall class feature. You get a few tiny things and then that one's pretty good. So I do like that, but Frey, let's hear the class overview and your tier 1, man.
Absolutely. So for Sorcerer here, I am kind of focusing on what I like to do with spellcast in general, right? I'm focusing on versatility and support. A little bit of damage just because the Sorcerer leans into that, I think, more so than the other spellcasting classes. So damage is also a good focus, but more so boosting up the party and making sure I'm keeping them alive and boosting them up to take care of all the problems, right? Then for the subclass, I went with Primal. Just to read off the foundation feature here, we get Manipulate Magic. Primal Origin allows us to modify the essence of magic itself after you cast a spell or make an attack using a weapon that deals magic damage. You can mark a stress to do one of the following. Bump the spell or attack's reach by 1 range, gain +2 bonus to the action roll's results, double the damage die of your choice, or hit an additional target within range. This is going to be similar to Meta Magics from Dungeons & Dragons. So not bad. Love ways to manipulate spells, right? And so that's going to be kind of the focus of the spells that I choose, is what are going to capitalize on my ability to kind of manipulate those things there. It's also going to lead into my heritage and why I made those choices. I did go with Mixed, of course. For my top pick, I went with Giant just for the extra health slot. I'm not going to take any health boosts on my level up, so this is just going to provide a little bit of cushion. What I really wanted here was the second one, which was Elemental Breath from Dracona. This allows us to have a breath weapon. We can use it to attack either a single target or targets within a range. It uses our instinct, and it is considered a magical damage dealing weapon, so it will work with the Manipulate Magic feature. So that is going to be kind of my bread and butter ability when I have nothing I want to spend hope or stress on. That is going to be my go-to attack because I can manipulate as I want, and it's going to increase my proficiency, so it's going to stay relevant as I progress through. So really like the way that meshed with the Sorcerer there. And then for my community, I'm going to go with Orderborn on this one. Again, I think by this point we all know it's Orderborn or Seaborn. It's going to be your go-to picks unless you're trying to do something niche there. I think Orderborn is just going to work a little bit well here because I want that D20 Hope die, so I'm going to come up with some features that are going to tie into probably my ability to manipulate magic in some way, so I'm getting the bonuses whenever I'm trying to mess with my spells a little bit. Then for my traits, I'm going to set my agility to 0, strength at a -1, finesse +1, instinct +2, presence +1, knowledge at a 0. So nothing crazy off the wall there. For my stats, I'm not going to go into anything too crazy with this build, not tracking anything leveling up that is significant for those. And then for my domain card picks, first I'm going to go with Wall Walk, just because I think it's a low-key great feature to have. I feel like, especially in the early levels, traversal is a really easy thing to throw at low-level parties because they don't have a way to deal with it. And so this is a quick way to, if you're able to, there's a steep cliff you got to go down, you got to make a climb check. No, I'm going to just walk down it, right? It's an easy solution to, I think, early character problems. Which leads into my second pick, which is Pick and Pull, which is going to help us do some lock picking and stuff. Will help out the rogues if we don't have one, maybe we are that rogue. And that's going to be kind of the theme as I level up, is I'm going to be trying to lean on that midnight domain a little bit. So my finesse is going to be my second ability score that I'm going to be increasing with my instinct to just try and kind of fill that role. So this is more geared towards if you don't have like a roguelike character in the party. If you did, I probably would make a little bit of changes, but I'm going to assume that I am the roguelike character in the scenario. But that is what my tier 1 looks like.
Yeah, no, I like that tier 1. I like the way you're going with this. This is definitely leaning on that rogue side, but for me in particular, I'm going to actually be trying to lean into the arcane deck a bit more. I'm going to be doing essentially a Spellblade idea, except we're going to be going with a Spellfist idea, and so I'm going to go with the Giant Human combo here. So we're going to take that extra stress slot from Human, and then we're going to get that reach from Giant. We're going to be up front. We're going to be doing some damage. The whole point is to lean into the damage because really and truly, the Sorcerer only has one potential role, and that is damage. There's really not much else to do here. There's only like maybe 3 or 4 cards that actually help out the team, but that's all on the Midnight Domain deck side. I think you only got 1 in Arcana. That's it. And so team play is not something that you can do here with the Sorcerer, so you kind of have to lean into the damage roll pretty hardcore. So, to that end, we're going fist spells and nothing else. We're not going to worry about anything else besides what we can do with our fists and how we can use that melee magic that is so prevalent here in the Arcana deck. So, with that being said, I'm also going to be going Seaborn. So, had to go with the human giant Seaborn idea because, let's face it, Seaborn, we already know you got to get those +1s. It's going to be so helpful later on because you are going to be rolling with fear from time to time, so that's just going to fuel your to-hits and hopefully help you when you really and truly need it and just spend all those tokens. So, yeah, absolutely love that. Now, for my stats did kind of change from what I was initially wanting to go with. I did make sure to have my instinct at a +2. I will put that out there, mainly because I think we're going to lean more into that spellcasting side. So we're going to go with a +1 in our strength, +1 to agility, a 0 in finesse, a 0 in knowledge, 2 in instinct, and a -1 in presence. We're a giant. We don't really need to have anything with presence. We're going to go with the evasion of 11 here because we're going to take that Gambus and armor. We're trying to build as much of an evasion here, but you really can't do an evasion build here with the Sorcerer. Our health is at 6, and then our stress is at 7 thanks to being a human. We did go with the elemental origin. So that one, obviously because we want to showcase that one, but I like that one a lot more, I think anyways, by comparison to Primal. This really does lend its aid to the damage side of things, being up front. Like, you almost have to go with that Spellblade Singer idea, you know, like you have to. All right, so for the Elemental Origin Foundation, this is where we do get to choose an element of our choice, and that's what we have going forward, and we get to use it in a lot of fun different ways as we build in this subclass. So for that, I did take Earth. Giant Earth just felt right, you know. So you can shape this element into harmless effect. And then additionally, you can spend a hope to describe how your control over the element helps your action roll. You're about to, basically whatever that action roll you're about to make is, and then you either gain a +2 bonus to the roll or a +3 bonus to the roll's damage, which is rather nice. I mean, it's kind of forcing you to get into more damage things just with that foundation card right there. And so because of that, because we're going to rely on our arcane gauntlets that we're using with our giant here. That is the main one I wanted to go with. We still kept that idea from the old build because, let's face it, that's kind of terrifying. You know, a giant casting spells and just running up on you and just pounding you with their fists. Like, come on now. So for that, we decided to go with Rune Ward for our first domain deck card, just to try and grab a little bit of protection, you know, a little bit of damage reduction. And then because we had the kind of melee side of things taken care of, we went with Unleash Chaos to kind of give a little bit more of a range damage capability here. And eventually we will swap that out, but for now, starting out at level 1, this is a good starter spell to have at your disposal. So, but that is my tier 1 and character overview. What's your tier 2 looking like?
All right, so for tier 2, again, just going to run through my level up. Of course, I'm going to increase my traits. I'm going to take Instinct to a 3, Finesse to a 2. I'm going to take a play out of your book. I'm also going to take another trait increase just to, bump me up a little bit. Nothing else I really wanted here. It was between this and experience, so you could go either way, but I'm going to take my knowledge up to a +1 and my agility up to a +1. So I got a couple +1, +2, and a +3 there. I'm going to take 2 additional stress slots. I'm going to bump my evasion also, and then finally pick an extra domain card. Like I said, I'm not increasing HP here. I'm kind of going glass cannon-y, so to speak. I'm trying to like be more back, right? I expect you to probably take some HP increases. You're up in the front. I'm hiding out in the back, hiding behind some walls. So for my domain card picks, I'm going to pick up Floating Eye. So it's going to allow me to basically have a little sentry token that I can throw up in the air, throw up to look around corners, things like that. Be my kind of scouting tool. Of course, Counterspell I think is mandatory when you can get it. It's always great to have in your back pocket. I'm also going to pick up Preservation Blast just in case something does get up on me. I can go ahead and blast it away as best I can. And then for my extra pick, I'm going to go with Shadowbind just to give me a little bit of control as well. So like I said, I got a little bit of damage with Preservation Blast, but of course my primary damage tool here is going to be my Elemental Breath. It's going to be increasing with my proficiency, and I'm able to manipulate it with my meta magic. So if I don't want to, if the party's up in the mix, I can always twin it, right, and target 2 targets individually using that aspect. I can bump out the range if I need to, do all that fun stuff with it to manipulate the breath. So that's my kind of go-to damage dealer, and most of my spells are just going to be supplementing my use to the party. Then that leads me to actually having a loadout in a vault. For my loadout, I'm carrying, we'll start with the vault because it's shorter, right? Pick and pull is going to be in the vault. It doesn't cost anything to pull it in. I just use it when I need to, and then it's sitting in the vault. So I got Floating Eye, Counterspell, Preservation Blast, Shadowbind, and Wall Walk ready to go. And so the only thing that's really changed stat-wise is my stress is up to an 8. But other than that, like I said, I'm just trying to be walking utility at this point.
Very nice, yeah. I think we're going to have a lot of the same almost domain card picks to some degree here, because I feel like there's only a few things that are really worthwhile for a sorcerer to take, but hey, that's okay. So for my particular tier 2, I did increase my strength to +2, because let's face it, we're using a strength-based weapon, we're going to want to get it up there. I basically I took a page out of my own book, I increased my traits twice. So I had to go with getting an agility +2 now, so we're raising that up by 1. A finesse +1, because again, we're kind of leaning in on a little bit of this roguish quality, so we want to be able to get a better hide going on. Knowledge is still a 0, but my instinct does go to +3, and that presence is still going to be a great -1. So I also increase my evasion to 12, HP to 7, and then my stress goes up twice, so that way I can get to 9 stress, because we're going to be using a lot of stress in this build. So the sooner you build it, the better off you're going to be. But for my domain card picks, the first one I take is Cinder Grasp. Again, we're trying to be melee, we're trying to use and lean in on that reach ability that we have with our giant. So that way we can do this at very close range instead of just melee range. That's the nice part about that, because it does confer 2 spell attacks that have melee for their range. And then we take flight, actually. I wanted a little bit of that, like you were talking about, a little bit of utility for traversal. And nothing scarier than seeing a flying giant come at you with their fist, about to destroy you. Or, of course, I can cast fly on somebody else. That's perfectly fine, too. But that's the idea there. We want that just-in-case capability of traversal. And then Preservation Blast, because, again, we're going to be up in front of everybody. Glass Cannon, I want to be able to get that before I get destroyed, because it's bound to happen as well. And then also to that end, for the traversal side, we want to swap out our Unleash Chaos and bring in Wall Walk. It's just, had to. I had to bring that in. Since I no longer really need Unleash Chaos, I'm happy with what I have as far as traversal capability is concerned. There's not a whole lot that you're going to be able to, stop me from getting close to you, because if I can Wall Walk, I will find a way to get to you. I can fly. I don't have to worry about having to actually do any strength-based, agility-based kind of physical rolls like that. So I'm loving that side of this. It's going to build into something kind of weird and interesting, but I think that's what's interesting about this Sorcerer, is it forces you to rethink how you look at a character build and how you're actually going to build this damage and build this, glass cannon. So How do you improve upon this glass cannon here at tier 3?
I do want to just piggyback on the wall walk. I just want to highlight how good it is. That has been like, if he watches this in my Curse of Strahd campaign, I have a character who plays a Dampier. He has wall walk, and he has solved 50% of the problems I've thrown at it just for his ability to walk the wall. So it's an underrated spell. Always pick up wall walk if you can. But tier 3 traits, of course, instinct to a 4, finesse to a 3. I'm going to take the proficiency bump, so I now have that up to 4 proficiency, and then I'm going to take 2 stress slots, and then of course I'm going to upgrade my subclass. So for the Primal specialization feature, we get Enchanted Aid. You can enhance the magic of others with your essence. When you help an ally with a spellcast roll, you can roll a d8 as your advantage die, and then once per long rest, after an ally has made a spellcast roll with your help, you can swap the results of their duality dice. So this one, again, just helping out the party, kind of why it went into my focus, right? Yes, I can manipulate my magic a little bit, but I do have a little bit of extra aid to the other spellcasters in the party, so just adds into the focus of the build. For my domain cards, first I'm going to pick up Chain Lightning. I'm a sucker for lightning spells. Chain Lightning's in the game, Lightning Bolt's in the game. I'm taking it. I don't care if it even makes sense in the build, but it works here just because it's going to, since I can manipulate that range, it's just going to make it a little easier to get those lightning jumps and get it to where I want it to go. I'm also going to take Rift Walker. Again, I've used it before in a previous build. I believe it was the Bard build, and it's just ways to help the party traverse, right? Only limited by the fact that you can't cast spells in between, but it's just more so for those in those instances, right, where I can wall walk, make the rift, wall walk over, open another rift, and there we go. Now we get the party across. And then for level 7, I am going to take Arcana Touched. My loadout at this point is mostly Arcana. I'm not going to stay that way for long, but I do pick it up here just because it's going to be a nice benefit here in tier 3. So with my loadout, it is going to look like Chain Lightning, Rift Walker, Counter Spell, and Preservation Blast, and then of course Arcana Touch just to capitalize on that. Vault, we're looking at Wall Walk is now sitting in the vault. Hopefully I don't need it all the time, but I'm ready to pull it in when I need to. Pick and Pull, Floating Eye, and Shadow Bind. Those last 3 in particular are all 0 recalls, so I have a vault full of 0 recalls, minus Wall Walk, I believe it's 1, so really easy to pull them in and out as I need to as well. So still sitting good. Now I'm doing a little bit more damage with Chain Lightning. That's probably going to be my go-to when I have the resources right, and then falling back on the breath once I've kind of burned through those. But that's my tier 3.
Very nice. Yeah, I like how you're working in that breath weapon more often, especially since it is an instinct roll already, and just being able to just keep going after it. That's great. That's a nice way of not having to have like an actual melee weapon in your hands when somebody gets close to you. You're just like, aha, I love that. So for my tier 3 though, I also increase my proficiency because again, you kind of have to. When you're going damage, you got to make sure you're getting as much damage dice as possible here. So had to do that. Also increase my traits. That's like the first thing you do when you take level 5. You got to. So that's going to be +3 strength, +4 to instinct. Have to do it. Also taking my specialization. The specialization is actually really nice. Again, it's leaning into being a melee fighter. Like you have to. So for this, I get Natural Evasion. You can call forth your element to protect you from harm. When an attack roll against you succeeds, you can mark a stress and describe how you use your element to defend you. When you do, roll d6 and add its result to your evasion against the attack. Absolutely love that idea there. We're basically becoming an earthbender right now as we progress through this elemental origin. So that's kind of the way I think of it anyways, as far as being able to get that evasion. Like it's almost just popping up to mess with them, or you're just sending out some like stones that just get in their eyes as they do their attack. So love that. Same goes for the added damage from the foundation. You can't go wrong with that added damage or added to the attack roll itself. So but to that end, because we want to make sure we utilize that evasion as much as possible, I want to make sure my evasion goes up. So I get to 13 for my evasion. My HP still stays at a 7. Can't be a glass cannon if you have a lot of health, so we're going to stay down low for that one. And then we're going to be at stress 10 instead of stress 9. So moving that through. But as far as the domain card picks are concerned, I went with something a little bit different than what you had here. I did go with Phantom Retreat instead for my first tier 3 card, mainly because I wanted the ability to pop back out in a jiff if I had to. So like if I went in scouting, I could pop right back out. You know, like that's the whole point. I just got to spend the hope to do it, but it's kind of a cool ability to have, especially if you pop it, you know, back in town and then you guys go adventuring and then all of a sudden I spend another hope and I'm out of there. Yeah, deuces. But then I also took Shadowbind because it's a really good card to have in your arsenal when you need to be able to lock somebody down, especially if they're super mobile. You need to lock them down. Shadowbind's a great way to do that. And then I also took Arcana Touched. It's just, you gotta have it, especially if you're gonna be doing a lot of spell casting on top of having Seaborn in my arsenal too. Super helpful. And being able to swap over the dice, the results of the hope and the fear, like that's such a great thing to have ready to go. And although it's just once per rest, still though, it's still a nice thing to have in your pocket when you need that. Yeah, that's all you need. Sometimes it's only one time, that's all you need it. So for my loadout, I do also have Preservation Blast in my loadout along with Flight, Cinder Grasp, Arcana Touch, and Phantom Retreat. In the vault, it's going to be Rune Ward because obviously you can just kind of pop that thing and then put it in the vault and you're fine. Wall Walk and Shadowbind because Shadowbind is a 0 recall cost, so it's just made for the vault, you know? It's just made to be in there. But that is my tier 3. What is your tier 4?
All right, so for tier 4, of course, traits, Instinct to 5, Finesse to 4. I'm going to increase my proficiency. Now I'm up to 6 proficiency, so I'm rolling 68 now for my breath weapon. So I'm still doing some pretty good damage just relying on that breath weapon, which is nice. Gonna double up my stress again, and then of course take my subclass feature. I really do love the mastery feature here. We get Arcane Charge. You can gather magical energy to enhance your capabilities. When you take magic damage, you become charged. Alternatively, you can spend 2 hope to become charged. When you successfully make an attack that deals magic damage while charged, you can clear your charge to either gain a +10 bonus to the damage roll or gain a +3 bonus to the difficulty of a reaction roll the spell causes the target to make. You stop being charged at your next long rest. So with this, since it doesn't specify on like a single roll or anything like that, with my breath weapon, I can do an extra +10 damage to the entire group that I am hitting. So a lot of potential damage there to add in that with just the breath weapon, let alone, you know, chain lightning, all that stuff. So really love that. Again, like you said, I'm going to echo here, Sorcerer really leans into being a damage focused class. Didn't capitalize it too much on this build, but on the abilities that I do have, you can definitely pump out some good damage. For my domain cards, at level 8, I actually was not a fan of anything here at level 8, so I went all the way back to pick up Hush, just to get a little bit of silencing abilities. One, it can help us on any kind of stealth checks, right? Because we won't be able to make sounds if we're affected as well, but primarily to kind of handle those caster classes, as this will help nullify the ability for enemies to cast spells as well. Then at level 9, I'm going to pick up Night Terror. So for this, we can choose any targets within very close range. The reason I like this, because now I can bump that out to a close range, so now I get up to roughly 30 feet is very good for this. Reaction roll 16, they become temporarily horrified, they're vulnerable. For every target I hit, I can take a fear from the GM, who get the horrify condition right, so if they fail that roll, and then roll number d6 is equal to the fear stolen to do damage. So this one I really love for this. I didn't dive too much into the abilities, right, because we kind of covered both domains up to on this point, but this one I wanted to highlight just, I think this really capitalizes on what the Primal can do, right? I'm bumping this thing out just to potentially affect a lot more targets. So I really like this spell in particular for Primal just because of the way it interacts. And then at level 10, I am going to pick up Eclipse. This one, let us plunge the air into darkness within a far range. You can bump that out, I guess, if you really needed to, but probably not needed as much for this one. And then attack rolls, disadvantage on anyone targeting you and your allies can see through the darkness as well. Whenever they succeed with hope against the enemies while we're in this darkness, the enemies must also mark as stress. So this one, just a great spell to have in general. Just wanted to touch on these two in particular just because I really loved these two spells. The Midnight Domain, we'll get into a little bit, but I really love the back half of the Midnight Domain. Then, of course, as you can tell, I've picked up 3 Midnight cards at this point that I am going to be utilizing, so we're going to swap out Arcane Touched, or Arcana Touched, for Telekinesis, just to get, again, a little bit more utility. You can use that on enemies, you can also use it on objects, pull things, push things away, right? great spell to have in the back pocket. So for my loadout, we're going to bring in Night Terror and Eclipse. I want to have those ready to go. And then keeping Chain Lightning as well, Counterspell, and Shadowbind. Those are going to be my go-tos there. In the vault, we got Wall Walk, Pick and Pull, Floating Eye, Preservation Blast, and Riftwalker, Hush, and Telekinesis. Of those, a lot of those are 0s and 1s for recall, so not too expensive to pull in. Just Preservation Blast and Riftwalker are a 2. I don't imagine I'm pulling them in too much, but they are good enough to where I want them. Even if one of those, I'd rather have them and not need them than to need them and not have them. So I just have those there ready to go. But that is what my tier 4 is.
Very nice. I like that a lot. Well, for my tier 4 here, I do, of course, take the Mastery, and the Mastery is actually kind of cool. So I get Transcendence. Once per long rest, you can transform into a physical manifestation of your element. When you do, describe your transformation and choose 2 of the following benefits to gain until your next rest, which is actually kind of nice, honestly. So +4 to your severe threshold, +1 to your character trait of your choice, +1 to your proficiency, or +2 to your evasion. Quite honestly, I'm probably going to go for that proficiency and the evasion, just to obviously lean into that, because I do not pick up the 6th proficiency here at tier 4. I'm just going to stick to 5. I think that's good enough. That's going to get me to 6 when I need to, so not really a big deal to me, which would also mean that my evasion would go up to a 16 if I also take that. So again, not too bad there, because my evasion right now is now a 14 with this one. I do increase my strength to +4 and then my instinct to +5. As you do, customary thing to do. It's just a no-brainer at that point. My HP does go up to 8. That is where we cap out at. And then our stress goes to 11. So that's the final there. I always like having just enough stress to really unload on some of these spells that we get to take here at level 10 and even sometimes level 9. So love that to death. But that is kind of where everything rounds out. So for my domain deck cards here, I do take Confusing Aura. This one I actually really like a lot because you're able to pump some stress into it and then you just maintain it. You just get to maintain it for the day. It has no end state until that 4 is rolled, basically. That 4 or below is rolled. That's when the end state hits. So I love that idea. So I want to pump in a good amount of stress, get a good amount of different forms on me, so that way it is rather confusing to deal with, and that gives me a lot of protection. So as those forms basically get destroyed throughout the course of the combat, I should be okay for a little while off of that. So I do like that part of it. And when that fails, I have Rune Ward to help mitigate some of that damage down, of course, on top of the armor that we have. So love that. Earthquake. Had to take Earthquake. I have Fly for a reason. We might as well give it even more of a reason, and that's where Earthquake comes into play. So that way we can just disrupt the battlefield and then fly around it and do the things that we get to do while everybody is temporarily vulnerable. That's the other thing I like about that. Conditioning your GM's adversaries is the best move you can make in order to take that fear away. So can't say no to that. And then I do also take Night Terror, because I imagine before I use my Preservation Blast, I would like to use Night Terror and then Preservation Blast to blow them all back. So yeah, I think that's a fun combo, but you already talked on Night Terror, so I don't need to really go into that one. But really great card. Got to take that because this is my extra card here. And then I took Falling Sky. Falling Sky, I don't believe we've touched on at this point. So I will touch on this a little heavier than we would have before. So make a spellcast roll against all adversaries within far range. Mark a number of stress to make shards of Arcana rain down from above. Targets you succeed against take 1d20 plus 2 magic damage for each stress marked. If you want to end an entire battle, this is a way to do that, because again, we have 11 stress. Now let's say we've used half of it up until this point and we only have, let's say, 5 left. That's 5 right there. And let's say we've been holding on to all those Seaborn freaking Tides tokens and all that stuff. So we have all these pluses. At level 10, that is a +10 to our to hit with our +5 with our instinct roll. You're already sitting at a 15. you're going to hit most everybody with that spell. And then being able to do 5 D20s plus 2, that could really hurt. That could really wreck the entire battlefield. And I think that's what I'm loving about that idea. And that's probably where I stopped being that Spellblade, that Spell Fist idea. That's where I stopped being that, in that moment of when I call down the sky. You know, like, can't go wrong with that. So, anywho, those are my domain card picks. So for my loadout, I do still stick with Preservation Blast. It's just too good. Got to keep it in the loadout. Phantom Retreat, still love that one. Same with Cinder Grasp, Arcana Touched, and Confusing Aura comes into play because Rune Ward's a quick one to swap in if I needed to bring that in. But that's the way I'm going to work that because I do want to use Confusing Aura at the beginning of the day, then swap in Rune Ward, so I have that, and then I can swap in, say, Shadowbind or Wall Walk whenever I needed to, get rid of Rune Ward to get it out of my loadout. Earthquake being in the vault, I can swap that in at any point in time. It's not for any particular card, it's just whenever I need it and whatever's not doing anything for me. So, Night Terror, however, is also in the vault, and that's going to swap out with Phantom Retreat. So that way I can do the things I need to do and maybe swap it back out again when I need to get the hell out of there, if I need to. And then for Night Terror, I would actually swap in Falling Sky, because Falling Sky is in my vault. And so I'm looking to, really rotate through some of these cards and keep certain ones in my loadout. Because Cinder Grasp I have no need to get rid of. It's just a great one to keep in your loadout at all times. Arcana Touch can get moved out. If you feel the need, it can get moved out. But Flight can also get swapped in for all that. So as you're rotating through these things, you're going to know what's going to work best for you. But that is going to be the way that works. So within the vault is Earthquake, Night Terror, Falling Sky, Flight, Shadowbind, Wall Walk, and Rune Ward. I know that was a little confusing, but hey, I wanted to give you the rotations. So you got to know the strategy behind these cards because it's necessary with the Sorcerer. It's absolutely necessary. And to that end, what did you think of the Sorcerer?
I'm gonna go not the worst, right, Sorcerer, but of all the classes we've covered, though, this has probably been my least favorite.
Yeah.
And I think it's just from a design standpoint. I feel like every class we've covered up to this point has been, all right, I have this great class. I'm picking domain cards that are boosting what my class is good at, and I feel like here it was the opposite. The class features are like okay, but the domain cards ended up taking control of like what the class was. So instead of like picking a domain card that's fueling this, I'm like, okay, what can I do that I can like pump my class into because my class features aren't going to get the job done. And I think that's what it is, right? You could take the subclass features out of this, and like I probably would have made the same choices. Where I feel like it's been opposite for all the other classes. Like the subclass really determined what you were doing, more so than here. Just the class identity, I feel like, is really weak. Because like you said, you're kind of pigeonholed into damage, right? Even here, where my subclass was mainly about manipulating spells, as I got up into mastery, it all boiled down to, well, now you can do more damage. So it's like, cool, I've had these spells that I can use and manipulate in a way that's going to make it better, which, sure, doing more damage is better, but I have so many different ways to manipulate, I don't want to just focus on damage. And then my capstone is, you do more damage.
Yeah.
Well, I do love it. I love the ability of it. I just feel like it kind of wasted the last two subclass features.
You know, what I think it is I think it's because of what we have here in the core rulebook. Because mind you, right now, just to future-proof this video a little bit, we only have what is in the core rulebook. We don't have anything extra. We are only stuck with what Arcana has and what Midnight has. And Arcana is not good on its own. It doesn't have a huge identity on its own. It needs a good pairing. And Midnight, to me, was a misstep on that pairing. It was not a great complement. It wasn't a great companion for the Arcana deck. I think it made sense at least for the Druid, and at least the pairing with Sage Domain was actually a fun one because it kind of played well off of each other. With Midnight, it didn't really work out. And I think it's because they are trying to be different, and I will will grant Daggerheart this. They have their classes act differently than any of the other tabletop RPGs out there, not just D&D, but for the most part, most of them, if not all of them. And I understand, like, even with the wizard, I had to change my mind on the wizard, which when we do finally get to the wizard, you'll see how I actually change my mind and finally lean into what it's trying to, strengthen and become. With this one, I couldn't figure it out, and I was doing so many different builds. I think I created more characters for the Sorcerer to try and optimize this sucker than any others. And outside of creating a Spellblade, I couldn't think of anything else. I really kept going back to my old build because that was as good as I could do even now at this point. And this one I liked. I feel like I've optimized. I feel like I can honestly say that we optimized these subclasses for what they were and what we had at our disposal. But it could be so much better. And it just feels like too much was disjointed with this. It's like they had cool pieces, but together they didn't work. And together they just made a damage dealer with no team play. Like, how do you not have better team play in a game that's designed for team play? This was the antithesis of what they were trying to create, I think. I think this was just the absolute anti-hero of what they were trying to create. And I couldn't believe that. I could not believe it. It almost felt like a sorcerer mixed with a warlock mixed with a rogue that just doesn't know where they belong.
Yeah, because even the one feature that I got, the help die, bigger help die, great. But it's also like, when I was reading through it and I got to that one, I'm like, why is this here? Yeah. Like, it didn't make sense to be here because I'm manipulating spells and then I'm doing more damage, but now I'm also doing spellcast aid rolls. Like, it didn't make sense. I think and it probably would be too powerful and need balancing, but I think if maybe I could manipulate other people's spells as well, like maybe spending a hope and a stress, and then I can do it to another person's spell, now it makes sense because now I can kind of boost up what other spellcasters are doing. Same with the damage, maybe like I can do +10 or I can do +5 to someone else's spell. I think that might have made it tie more together, but yeah, it's all back to that identity. Like, the features were cool, but like every time I got to the next specialization, I was like, now I have to like revamp what I was doing. Like, I felt like I was zigzagging as I'm leveling up to figure out what I wanted to do.
See, I'm glad I didn't have that. With the Elemental Origin, I didn't have that because it all built on each other nicely, but it felt disjointed with yours, and I was like, what is happening right now with Primal Origin?
Yeah, and then like with the Midnight Domain, I don't know how you felt, but I felt with the Rogue, it was great. And then when I'm doing it with the Sorcerer, all I could think of, this card was made for the Rogue. Oh, this card was made for the Rogue. It does not fit on the build that I'm trying to do.
No.
And so I think that's where I had the most problem with it, where I feel like every domain has been good for either class that it's on. Like, it's very neutral. But the Midnight, to me, feels like a Rogue deck. And they didn't know where else to put it, and they stuck it on the Sorcerer.
That's exactly how that feels.
The missed opportunity, I feel like, and it probably would have just been a lot of balancing, so I don't blame them for not doing, is they should have been Arcana, and then your class feature was you can pick another subclass with spellcast, or another domain deck with spellcasting, and that should have been their entire class. You could have got rid of everything. No class feature. Your class feature is pick another spellcasting domain deck, and that is your second domain deck.
That has been
and I feel like
my
that would have
thing.
fixed everything about the Sorcerer.
I think that fixes everything about the game in general, actually, when it comes to the classes, because I think the main one should stick. Absolutely. The main one should stick, but that secondary one is like the added flavor. It's the spices that you throw into the main course here. It's not just... It shouldn't be just so willy-nilly like that, where it's like, I guess we'll stick Midnight Deck with this one. Why not? You know? It's just so disjointed. Just allow that for all the classes at that point. Say, hey, here's your main. Pick your secondary, whatever that is. Because maybe with Bard, I didn't want the Codex. You know, maybe I didn't want to take Codex at that point. And I did want to bring in, actually, Midnight Deck because I want my Rogue to be a little bit more on the shady side. Or sorry, my Bard to be a little bit more on the shady side, you know? Who knows? There's so many things that you can do with some of those combos that give you the right flavor that still keeps what your class is, but gives you a little bit of extra flavoring into that area without having the multi-class, mind you. Without having the multi-class. Which, with this one, I would have to multi-class into something else.
And that's what I was going to say too. I think this is the first one where I was very very tempted to not even take the subclass features because most of what I base it on, like with the breath weapon and everything, is all about just manipulating the spells from my foundation feature. I wanted to, of course, take them to optimize the flavor of the class. 'Cause I want to be like, this is what you can do with the class as a whole. But I think when we get into things like multi-classing and more like narrow focus builds, when it comes to the sorcerer, I would never want to take the specialization in the mastery feature. I foundation feature, at least for the primal, had everything that I wanted out of the sorcerer.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely for the Primal. I think Elemental was good as far as those subclasses are concerned, but I'd still want to multi-class into something that gives me better damage capability as a spell fist kind of individual. I want something like the Bone deck at that point. Like, give me that evasion and that ferocity. Give me that. Or the Blade deck if I really want to go a little bit harder on the actual damage and being up in front.
The Blade deck would have been great for yours.
It would have been great. And I think the Warrior would have probably complemented this Sorcerer really well for at least the idea, the concept that we had here. I think that would have been a lot better. But for you, I think, honestly, for the Primal Origin, if you're starting out with that, that's great. And then go into Wizard immediately. Don't even bother with the specialization and the Mastery. Just go straight in the Wizard. Get that, what is it, the School of War?
Yeah.
And get the Codex domain on top of that. Swap over into Knowledge or whatever the heck and just get rid of most of the things that make up the Sorcerer. Like, forget that nonsense.
No, I agree. Yeah, because like having that to be able to manipulate the spells and then getting Codex where you're getting 3 spells a pop, would be so great. And ultimately, right, when we get to the multi-class, if I do like Primal as the focus again, it's going to be to get that foundation and just move on, like you said, into Wizard or even anything else. Because like I love the foundation feature because it is not specific to damage or anything, right? Like because you have 4 different options, I can go into what's like I want to make a more flexible healer, cool, pick up Sorcerer and then go on into Seraph, right? Or go on into Druid to pick up those kind of like probably more Seraph since they have the earlier healing spells, but like you can and same with like, again, not to like always compare it to, but like with D&D having the meta magics, but you get to have the meta magics but without the limits of like your 2 spell points, so you get to use it pre-game with your stress and all that.
Right.
So, yeah, I like the bits and pieces of the Sorcerer, but when they tried to bring it all together
Which I hate that because I enjoyed the Sorcerer. In most of the other games that I played, I've enjoyed the Sorcerer. And with this one, I felt, and this was my problem with the Wizard, and I know I've said that bit before, but like I had to change my mind on the Wizard. I feel like there needs to be some sort of shift here with the Sorcerer, but I don't know what that is because the book, and I hadn't realized this up until this point, the book does not explain to you what this idea really and truly is for the Sorcerer. They're actually relying on your pre-knowledge, your veteran knowledge of playing games in general of what a Sorcerer actually is, and they're almost relying on that knowledge, but it's not helpful here with the actual Sorcerer. You kind of need a little bit more with whatever their direction was meant to be. And and again, I also hate comparing things to D&D, but at least the player handbook explained everything. So if you knew nothing about a monk and you had no conceptualized idea of what a monk is, it could go through and just give you everything that a monk is and what it does and what it's meant to be. You don't have that, funny enough, in the core rulebook. It does not actually explain to you, at least outside of a paragraph. It's just it's not even really a great paragraph. It's kind of an ambiguous paragraph on what a sorcerer is. And I was like, guys, come on, give me something a little bit more to work with because I can't build off of that if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I think that's, to that point, it's been the opposite. Again, that's where like the most comparison comes from, right? Leading up to this, when I read through a Seraph, a class abilities, and I read through the Bard abilities, I'm like, this is Bard. Yep, that makes sense. And I get to the Sorcerer, I'm like, we're just dealing damage. You were just born to cast Fireball, but you don't get Fireball.
Except you don't get Fireball, It's like, what? Not even a Fireball. It's in the Codex domain. You gotta go to the Codex domain to get your Fireball.
Like, the only way you're getting Fireball is if, I guess I could have Fireball, I could Fire Breath and just reflavor it as Fireball, but that's,
not ideal, but...
So yeah, no...
Yeah, it's not as great of a class as I wanted it to be. I think it's probably one of the weaker classes here in Daggerheart, which is kind of tough to say because there's some really strong classes here in Daggerheart, and it just sucks that the Sorcerer is like a mile behind while the rest of them are just up doing the good things. So
one of them always had to be the worst. It was just this one was the worst by far.
The worst by far, and unfortunately it's the Sorcerer. It kills me because I love Sorcerers, so it just kind of hurts inside, but that's okay. Hey, that's fine. I wish I was proven wrong from way back when we were talking about this in 1.5. I hated being disappointed by the Sorcerer then, and I think I can honestly say I'm disappointed by the Sorcerer now. I think it does one good thing, and that's glass cannon it, and that is all you've got. But at least we got the Warrior up next, which I am very much so looking forward to. Not a glass cannon. Somebody that can wreck face and really get mobile too. That's the other part. You're mobile, you got your health, evasion, all this good stuff. So I'm looking forward to the Warrior for sure. So that is what we're going to be getting into next. So let us know down below what you thought of the Sorcerer, whether you feel the same way, whether you feel differently. I would love to be proven wrong. I'd love to have my mind changed about the Sorcerer. So if you can help us out with that, please, please. But I think at the end of the day, it's just not the right class for me, at least not here in Daggerheart. And I think that's where I'm going to have to close that book, but I am willing to hear out other opinions. So let us know down below. But until the next one, keep that shield wall strong.